Today is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. Last week, the C market soared to 417 before correcting a day later, down to below 390 at the end of the March notice period, triggered by funds shorting long positions in anticipation of rain this week in Brazil. The rains would end a prolonged dry period in the country, improving expectations for the coming harvest. Meanwhile, the USD continued to decline to its lowest value in 3 months as a result of the global trade war, creating macroeconomic conditions supportive of higher prices for commodities. I'm Christopher Farron.
And I'm Kylee Clancy.
This is Buying Season.
I had like a crazy high fever, and then 4 days later got a notification that's like, your shipment's on the way. And I'm like, my shipment of what? I was in such a fever dream. I did online shopping. I got a really fun pair of tennis shoes.
Nice.
Maybe I'll bring them to Honduras. They're like silver metallic sneakers that I've been wanting. So it was like, I'm glad with my decision.
Yeah.
But the fact that I did online shopping with a high fever and had no memory, insane.
And you're heading to Honduras in like 3 days, right?
Yes, Saturday.
So by the time this comes out, you're going to be in Honduras.
I will be there. I will, be enjoying all of the heat. It's going to be really hot.
Have you done everything to prepare for your trip?
Not even close. I haven't even started.
Do you have like a standard packing list, or?
I do. I have. It's funny because I feel like when I first started, I was really good about like condensing everything down, like only bringing exactly what I need. And now it has expanded quite a bit. I usually don't travel with that much stuff. I try to not be a bag lady. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's already so much, like, girls have so much stuff.
True. Yeah.
So it's like, I don't want to like feed into that narrative. But also, it's like no secret. Anybody who knows me knows that I love my clothes. Like, my first love, my clothes. That's not true. I have so many wonderful people in my life, but the clothes are up there.
What do you for like footwear?
So this has been a very hot topic for me recently.
Yeah.
I have been a diehard Blundstone girl forever. Like even in the cafes, that is like all I wore. And then I started buying and I was like, I already have the universal coffee buyer shoe and I love it.
True.
And then I went to a couple places where it was like really wet. And I am not consistently the most graceful person, maybe I should say. But I found that with my Blundstones, I was slipping a lot. So I brought hiking boots and all of a sudden my life was changed. I was like, whoa, I have like traction?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, Colombia a couple months ago was the first trip I did without my Blundstones. And I wasn't sure how I felt about it. But then I brought the hiking boots again for Ethiopia, India. And that seemed to work for me. I usually like the perk to Blundstones is then you only need one pair of shoes.
Exactly. That's really nice.
I know you're an avid Blundstone.
I am.
Like that's the nice part is like they go with, I mean, not that again that this matters, where I'm like, they match all the outfits. But they do. I've worn them with like dresses if I've needed to like kind of like dress something up for a nicer dinner. So that's the downside to the hiking boots is I end up packing like a pair of tennis shoes.
Sure. Yeah.
But it is nice to kind of switch between shoes and kind of give my feet a break on really long trips.
So they're a keeper.
Definitely. It also like gave me an excuse to like wear my hiking boots that I don't ever wear.
What about like other sort of unconventional things that you bring with you when you travel? Like you met mine.
I need to buy that.
Yeah. So I have this it's kind of like a zapper for like, you know how kids put like the cross on the mosquito bites to make it stop itching? There's a device that like heats the skin and zaps your skin and stops the bite, and a little handheld portable thing. And I travel with it now.
I need to start traveling with it. It hurts.
It feels so good though.
It hurts so good.
As well as I've got like mosquito incense.
Yeah.
Basically, since I got malaria, I'm like, I want nothing to do with the mosquitoes.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we also have the same water bottle. I don't always use it, but I have it. I do like liquid IVs.
Yeah.
Or any sort. That is one of my like all-time must-haves.
Same.
And I don't know if it's more of like a placebo thing, but it's like one of my favorite things to do before bed is like chug a water bottle with a liquid IV in it. And I'm like, oh, yes, I am hydrated.
I think at elevation too, it's really good. So many people I know have altitude sickness when they travel. And I'm like very lucky that I've never experienced that.
I haven't either, but I pack for it. I always like pack. I always bring like stuff for motion sickness too, which I don't experience, but
yeah.
I always bring like a bandana.
For like tying your hair back or tourniquet?
No, well, it's multi-purpose. Sometimes like in Ethiopia, I was using it for dust.
Oh, smart.
But more often than not, I find myself using it to either like wipe things or dry my hands.
That's a good one. I feel like everything else that I bring is just so utilitarian and focused on like trying to conserve as much space as possible, knowing that I'm going to have to like bring back samples, and so I,
Yeah.
need every inch of space.
Yeah, the other thing that I will not travel without is a pillowcase. And I don't always use it, but sometimes you're in places and I'm like, I don't really know if I want to put my head on this. The white noise machine that you told me to buy, that one changed the
Oh,
game.
this is my top secret one. Yeah, white noise machine that has different fan and white noise sounds. You can also use it as a Bluetooth speaker. It's really small, portable. The battery lasts like 12 hours, or you can charge it via USB. But I've been traveling with this thing for a decade.
Yeah, that was a good one to have, even in just like places where I'm just like, I don't want to hear, I don't know, I get really bad anxiety at night.
Hmm.
I was like, I don't want to hear what's going on outside.
Yeah.
I just like don't want to know.
Well, it's supposedly like this thing where when you travel to a new place, if you're sleeping in a new room, your body is like subconsciously aware of it. And so you never fully fall asleep unless you're dead tired.
That's terrible.
Yeah. And so I think just having the white noise machine improves my quality of sleep as well, to reduce some of that change anxiety.
I mean, that makes sense.
Right? I can't believe you're leaving against us soon.
Yeah, I'm like still recovering. I got like super, super sick when I got back from my last trip. So pardon me if I start coughing.
I think it's one of those things that's almost so obvious that a lot of people don't think about it. But to do a direct style of sourcing, it does require a bit of travel. And I'm a little more risk averse than most people. I think most buyers just kind of get on a plane and go.
That's exactly what I do.
For sure, not surprised. But like, I don't want you to get sick again. So while you're still packing, I figured that this was a good time to get some expert advice. So I reached out to my friend Rehan, who's a doctor, to see if he could come help us out.
I think that's a great idea. I know that like everybody, I feel like even right now across the country is getting really sick. Yeah.
To be clear to everyone, you are a medical doctor.
Yes, yes. So my disclaimer is please talk to your doctor. Don't take this as being your physician. I will talk on topics, but the medical board would not be happy if I was dishing medical advice at the moment.
Perfect. That's great.
As a refresher, I'm a board certified internist, practiced for about a decade, half at the VA, the other half at the county health system in Cleveland, and then moved into various corporate roles, whether it's strategy or artificial intelligence and automation. Most recently, my work was around public health, artificial intelligence being used for prediction modeling of disease progression throughout the country, and really looking at modeling unknown elements, like looking back at the data that we had around COVID and could we come up with a better canary in the coal mine to be able to predict the next future unknown respiratory elements.
So when we're traveling to places, everywhere the coffee grows is tropical, subtropical. We're concerned with a lot of different things that we might not have here in the US or Europe. What are some of the things we might need to be aware of when we're traveling?
That's a long list. I think it really depends upon where you're going as well, right?
Sure.
And so there are regional outbreaks that are happening throughout the world. And so depending upon where you're headed, part of this is understanding what's an ongoing element in that region versus what's acutely occurring. And then you also have to factor in that you're usually not taking a direct flight, right? So you're
Sure.
usually stopping in, connecting somewhere. And at that airport, you've got potential exposure to a lot of travelers you don't know.
Kylie and I just flew to India together, and one of the countries that I passed through was very concerned with my yellow fever vaccination because I had been to a yellow fever endemic country prior. But I think that's like not on the list of everybody's, yearly physician checkup. But, is there some way that people can, other than speaking to their doctor, can find information for themselves?
So the State Department usually had been doing a pretty good job. I don't know. I haven't checked it lately. I don't know if it still exists, but the department had been doing a pretty good job based on the country you were visiting, providing high-level information on things that they were concerned about, and that was usually my go-to as a starting point. But beyond that, I think the World Health Organization also puts out some information around what's happening globally, and then trying to make sure you get your vaccinations up to date because, as you shared, vaccines globally are very different than what's typically offered in the US.
I'll share this in the description for the episode, but right now I'm looking at the CDC Travelers Health page for Honduras. So this is all the stuff that Kylee was supposed to do
Oh,
uh,
great.
before she left. So it covers everything from your routine vaccines that you should have if you had, any participation in public schools in the U.S. Well, at least up to this point, and then some additional ones like hepatitis A, hepatitis B, typhus, yellow fever, things like that, as well as malaria prophylaxis.
I've never looked at a website like this before.
Yeah, well, we'll share it. We'll share in the description. I think it's a really helpful resource, and it's just a reminder to mosquitoes are a big vector for disease in the places that we travel, particularly in rural areas. And with climate change, there are more of them. Water is another one.
Most of our GI tracts are not set up to take in water that is local. So trying to find purified bottled water is typically the way to go. It's unfortunate because it causes waste at times if you get the larger refillable gallons. There are obviously those emergency water straws, but that's not really what you're going to use for your day to day, right? So
Sure.
but I think what we sometimes forget is the contamination of local water supply on other things. So you might be like, oh, I've been drinking all this purified bottled water, and then you go eat locally and they're cleaning the dishes and using ice cubes from the regular water. And you're like, hey, why did I still get sick? Well, you forgot these other elements that are in the mix that, if you don't stay vigilant to it, you create an opportunity for that risk.
Yeah. What about like brushing your teeth?
Bottled water, right? I mean, any time that you're potentially there, you've got to be aware of what water is going in your mouth and then impacting your GI tract. So those that have frequently visited an area, and this is true for me when I go visit family overseas, is while they're kind of used to it and their GI tract is used to it, I am not.
But what if we do get sick?
I think then it depends on what it is, right? And so typically your body's going to try to heal itself. And so if you end up getting a bug that's in the GI tract, you're going to end up likely having some elements of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. And in that instance, you've got to think about your hydration. And if you're not able to keep anything down, especially if you're in hotter tropical climates where you're going to be sweaty and you already have risk for dehydration, you are now at a greater risk. And so if you are able to keep things down, having like an electrolyte mix would be a little bit better than just plain water, just from a retention perspective. If you're vomiting, then you might need, anti-nausea meds first, and then you could try to maintain oral. And if you can't, then IV. Which, again, I don't know how far you are from a local clinic there or what's available in the local clinic, especially in remote regions, but that's stuff to keep in mind.
Is there anything that we could bring along with us? Like I always travel with Pedialyte, the powder mix.
Mm-hmm.
But is there anything else that we might be able to bring along that could help just in case we do get sick?
I think the Pedialyte is great. I think having antiemetic medication, having a few of those might be good to have. Again, you don't want to get to a place where you're self-treating, but having that conversation with your doctor, say, hey, I'm going here. Would it be useful to have some of this? I think the dry packets and mixing them obviously with bottled water, not the tap water, right? Just be mindful there. Can be a great way to just supplement what losses you have. And depending on how far away you are, how rural you are, carry more with you. It's better to have extra than to not.
I was just in Ethiopia before India with Christopher, and I was like, my malaria medication, the pharmacy never called. Now they're closed and I have to go to the airport and I don't know what to do. And when we got to Ethiopia, somebody was like, oh, my brother's a doctor. Like, we'll just call him. And we went to the pharmacy and I got like 30 or 40 malaria pills that they were like, the pharmacy was like, these aren't malaria medication. Like, this is not malaria medication. But then the doctor on the phone was like, no, but it is. It was whatever that.
Doxycycline, yeah, antibiotic.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm pretty sure it is, but like, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'll get these 2 boxes because you guys told me to. And the pharmacy's like, as long as you know it's not for malaria. And I'm like, but I don't know what's going on. And then it was like, okay, 800 burr. And I'm like, I can't do the conversion in my head right now. Take my credit card. And then I did it later and I was like, it's like $6.
Yeah. Like the advent of telehealth is pretty great for what we do.
Oh, yeah.
because you can actually be in contact with your home doctor while you're traveling. And like that is the worst thing when you're traveling to a place for 6 days. You only have like 6 days to spend there, and then you're sick.
Prevention there, though, again, it'd be better if you didn't get sick.
I always get sick when I come back. I've been very lucky where it's like on the plane home is when I'm like, oh, I think I'm dying. Like, I think this is the end for me. And then 5 days later, I emerge as a new person. But that's kind of, I guess, speaking of prevention, this has kind of always been my like, is it real or is it a myth? Hand sanitizer. Not to be like
what's the myth about hand sanitizer?
It's real. It exists.
My thing with hand sanitizer, right? And this just happened in Ethiopia where I always travel with hand sanitizer, but more often than not, I travel with like Purell wipes and Clorox wipes and like wipes. And the people that I was traveling with, I feel like it was almost like every 10 minutes, they were spraying hand sanitizer on their hands. Like we probably went through like a bottle and a half of like spray hand sanitizer. And one day in the car, I pulled out my wipes and then we all wiped our hands. And it was like the amount of just like grime that came off on the wipe. And that's when we were all like, this is crazy. And then I started thinking more about it. And I'm like, is hand sanitizer really helping prevent as much as we think it is? Or is it just like pushing the dirt around? But I guess it's like cleaning it at the same time. It's like clean dirt.
Well, you can't conflate cleaning and sanitizing, right? They're two different things.
So it's sanitized dirt.
Yeah. It's like, you put alcohol on it and it kind of just, makes sure that anything that it could kill, it tries to kill. So it's like clean dirt.
Well, in a lot of cultures, like you do everything with your hands, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just avoiding that transmission.
But then again, that's where I'm like, I wasn't sure, like, because we were talking about it and somebody that I was with was like, well, I don't know if it's actually helping or if it's just making me feel like it's helping. That's where I was like, yeah, I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, like all of our hands actually look really gross, but I guess they're like sanitized.
And then we all go into a lab and dip our spoons in the same bowl. Rehan, do you know about cupping?
No. What is it?
So cupping is basically an industry standard method for evaluating the quality of coffee. We all have our own spoons and we clean them by dipping them into a shared cup of water in between passes. But we all drink out of the same cup. So spoon mouth, cup, spoon mouth, cup, spoon mouth, cup.
Wait. So the cleaning is through another cup of yours that you're
a shared mug of hot water.
Oh, so that hot water is going to magically clean it.
Yeah, I've got it set up here. I'll demonstrate here. Dipping it into water, onto the next cup. Cleaning, into the water, onto the next cup. And then someone comes down the line after me and does the exact same thing.
And then Christopher goes back and does it again.
And then they use the same water to clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cupping.
I like wish that this could have people's faces in it because your face as we were explaining this was like, what?
How is that cleaning? Like I don't know how that cleans any. And then is that water like bottled water or like local tap water?
Oh, it's definitely bottled water that has been boiled to whatever the local boiling point is. And then
the boiling points are different in different worlds. Okay.
Well, I don't know.
Elevation.
I don't know if you can say it's always bottled water, but it's definitely always boiled water.
It's always boiled. Yeah. And then it cools to room temperature, of course, over the course of our 25-minute cupping. So,
but it's not boiled between people, is it?
No.
Okay. And then it's not boiled between each sample because
no.
Because just putting it in that water doesn't necessarily mean that the spoon is clean. It just kind of got rinsed.
Yeah. Because we're concerned about cross-contamination with the coffee.
Got it. Okay. So you're not worried about sharing germs amongst the tasters, but just the coffee being
There is
pure.
technically like a safe cupping model where you like take your spoon, put it into your own private vessel, drink out of that. But I feel like people don't really like to do that. I don't really like to do that.
The safe cupping model sounds nice. I'm guessing you just have an extra element to rinse too then.
Yeah, you do.
Bring it in, then you got to rinse this for the residue.
But is all of our effort wasted in terms of disease prevention and getting vaccines and taking like all these pills? Is it all wasted when we go in the cupping room and then we're basically just like sharing saliva?
I mean, there is definitely added risk of cross-contamination when that is happening. So, when we talk about prevention, that is the opposite of prevention. Is what cupping is.
I mean, it is funny to think about. Like, I travel a lot. Like, I'm on the road pretty often for this, and I've only gotten sick with like scary foreign illness once. And the rest of the times when I come back, I just have this like unknown fever, aches, cough, snot. And it's like, I don't know how I got that. And it's like, well, I guess I did just spend a month like sharing spit cups and spoons. And everybody's just like, oh, it's just like you were tired. Your body just like got ran down. Your immune system was low. You were all over the place. You're on the go.
So this is where the term like idiopathic comes in.
What did you call me?
Like, did he just call me an idiot?
No, we use that term when we don't necessarily know the cause. What you're describing, you could say it's just me being fatigued, but more than likely you probably pick something up. Most of the time we don't necessarily just get ill because we're tired, right? We don't necessarily have all these symptoms just because we went and walked in the cold. There's another element that contributes to it, whether it's something that we touched, we swallowed, there's some element that's there.
So if it's inevitable that we're all going to be sharing rinse cups and coffee and things on these trips, if we're saying prevention, I mean, it's like, yes, clearly now knowing this, the smartest thing to do would be to just like always safe cup. But like, I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like not going to do that. So then like what are the best like traveler prevention methods?
So I think, are you just talking about when you're there or you're the whole journey?
I mean, I'll take whatever.
Okay. Well, I mean, the sanitizers might be useful.
Oh,
Maybe.
darn. Not a myth. Myth has been busted.
Starting at home is a good place to start. Making sure you're feeling well before you leave, right? And so part of that is before any major trip, the week before, if I was working an ED shift, I would mask up just to be on the extra safe side. Normally we wash in, wash out. Sometimes people use the alcoholic sanitizers. That's to me the secondary thing. If I can wash my hands with soap and water, that's obviously ideal because there are elements that aren't killed by the alcohol, especially spores when it comes to some of these bacteria. So if you can use soap and water, it is ideal and it'll be much better for you. So the week prior, just be mindful of what you're doing, who you're spending time with, what's occurring. And so that way you're setting yourself up. Plus, make sure you're eating well, you're hydrating appropriately and getting yourself in a good place. On your travels, when you're in close proximity with other people, especially people you don't know, consider wearing a mask. Not just the flimsy surgical, but get a good, an N95 mask that you can have with you. It can be annoying to have, especially if they're serving a meal. You can take it off for a little bit and put it back on, but all you're doing is reducing the amount of time that you are open to or winging into this raw air of sorts that's contaminated by who knows what. I know the airlines talk about HEPA filtration and moving the air through, but if there's somebody next to you coughing, it is what it is. You're right there, and there's not much room that you're going to have. So better protect yourself as much as you can. And even on the flight, if you are able to stretch, walk, you don't want to sit around for the long distances. Drink more water if you can, rather than alcoholic beverages or caffeinated ones, which will dehydrate you. So try to stay hydrated along the way. And then when you get there, depending on the climate that you're in, continue to hydrate, watch your exposure. If you can wash hands between interactions, do that. You can't always, so having alcohol available as a way to sanitize, but then as soon as you can get to water, use water, ideally, to properly clean and not just sanitize your hands would be the best bet to do. And we've already talked, as Christopher brought up, doing the prophylactic elements, whether it's vaccinations or making sure you've got the medication to take with you, and then sticking to that regimen. I think sometimes it's really hard if you're not regularly taking meds in the US and then you go overseas and you're supposed to take a pill every day, people forget. So all of that stuff comes into the mix. So there's those nuances. I mean, I could go on and bore people, but I think those are the big ticket things. Just be mindful and preventative as much as you can.
I mean, all the medical advice I've gotten here today is basically like stay away from people.
Yeah, sorry. No more friends for me.
You can just keep a good distance, right? Keep your germs where you are. I'll keep mine where I am. And they don't need to intermingle in this whole cupping thing that's going on.
Thank you, Rehan, for joining us and sharing your wisdom.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You know what I mean, though? It's like we were looking at our hands, and I'm like, I feel like we're just pushing dirt around.
I know. I do know what you mean. Yeah.
Then like you go wash your hands, but then you have like tap water on your hands.
I know. And so you have to use the tap water to get the dirt off.
I'm a big fan of the sanitizing after.
Same. Yeah, that's the right way.
I think so too.
Yeah. All right, Kylee. Well, safe travels. We'll catch up on the other side once you're back from Honduras. I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
Thank you. I'm super, super excited. It's gonna be a great trip.
Stay safe. Drink your water.
Thank you. Will do. Yeah, hydrate, all of the things. At least now if I get sick, I know that it's like 100% my fault because I didn't listen to the advice that was very clearly just given to me.
Yeah, you have to use hand sanitizer.
I never said I didn't. I just didn't know I believed in it.
Well, I believe in it now. All right.
This is buying season. Bye.